In the days of Elisha the prophet, Samaria was under siege by the king of Aram and his army. The famine the siege caused in the city was so great and lasted so long that a donkey's head was sold as food for the price of about 160 pounds of silver. The king of the northern tribes of Israel was walking the wall of the city during this siege when a woman shouted out to the king. Kings often acted as judges for civil disputes in those days, and this woman had a case with which she needed help. The king was a bit testy because of the famine, the siege, and his impotence to stop any of it and save his people. So he shouted back, "If the Lord does not help you, where can I get help for you? From the threshing floor? From the wine press?" In other words, "Lady, there's no food. What else could possibly matter?" But maybe the king thought better of snapping at the woman. Maybe he was curious about what help she could need. Maybe he was bored being sieged and being hungry and being impotent to change any of that. Maybe he just really needed a win. So he asked her, "What's the matter?" She answered, "This woman said to me, 'Give up your son so we may eat him today, and tomorrow we'll eat my son.' So we cooked my son and ate him. The next day I said to her, 'Give up your son so we may eat him,' but she had hidden him." That kind of broke the king's spirit, as the story takes it from there. He tore his robes and promised to kill Elisha the prophet, whom he blamed for the whole mess. He didn't stay to help the woman, the two women. Who would have? What help do they need? Where would you even start? The first woman seems to want the king to help her convince the second woman to produce her son to be cooked and eaten the way they cooked the first woman's son. She wants things to be fair. Now surely the second woman doesn't want to produce her son to be eaten, even though she is the one who convinced the first woman to give up her son. She wants to protect her son. These two women are now murderers and cannibals. Both of them are on the verge of starving to death, which seems to me like the best option for them. That's how bad this situation is. The best possible option is death. That actually was the best possible option before they became murderers and cannibals. And now things are worse. This is actually a story I've been thinking about a lot in this year of the most hotly contested election cycle, of demonstrations and riots and looting, and of a global pandemic. I've been ordered to stay home and wait out the siege, and I've had little else other than some contact with the members of my church and the internet by which to see what's going on out there. And the things people have been saying about the election, the conflicts leading to and resulting from the demonstrations, riots, and looting, the way people treat themselves and each other with a pandemic for a stage. I wonder. Can you imagine being so afraid of death that you would willingly put yourself through far worse? Like murder or cannibalism? Or even seemingly lesser forms of evil, or evils less culturally offensive to us civilized 21st century Americans. Can you imagine needing to save your own life so badly that you would forfeit your soul to your sin? Can you imagine thinking that this life is the best things will ever be? Yes, you can. So can I. And that's exactly what we've been saved from. In Jesus. We've been saved from thinking this life is the best things will be by the promise of a better one. We've been saved from what kills our souls and ruins our lives. We've been saved from every evil, even from the ones we are still experiencing, like disease, racism, political strife, starvation. We've been saved from sin. And that means we are saved from the fear of death. And someday things will get so bad for you and me that death will be our best option. Maybe in a hospital bed, maybe behind the wheel of a car, maybe stuck in our homes watching the world happen on the internet and not seeing it coming at all. Someday death will be the only option we get. We'll die. And we can easily imagine responding with fear, with being so afraid of death that we might consider choosing a greater evil with the promise of putting death off a little longer. But rather than imagine that, we know that we've been saved from that evil, so we don't want it. We know we've been rescued from that fear, so we don't need it. We know that death itself, for people like us, for people who belong to Jesus, death is one of the best things. It's what Jesus uses to bring us out, away from evil, out of fear, to our true home. We'll probably never have to consider cannibalism. We already don't have to be afraid of death. You and I are dust and breath, loved by God, bought by Jesus. This podcast is written and produced by me, Ethan Cherney, a WELS pastor serving Our Savior Lutheran Church in Pomona, California. Get in touch on Facebook at Dust and Breath Pod, on Twitter at Dust Breath Pod, or by emailing dustandbreathpod@gmail.com. Outro music arranged and performed by Mr. Peter Shawy, who is like a champion, rejoicing to run his course. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you could leave a review in iTunes or just share an episode on social media, I'd really appreciate it. It's the only way other people can find the show. Now, go do what God made you to do. Be who God called you to be. Go see what God can do with dust and breath and faith in Jesus, his Son.